What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be talking about my experience during wipe 0.1213. It's been a few weeks since the wipe has actually dropped, and I usually like to wait a little while because of the honeymoon stage. We're all getting in there, we're checking out the brand new map, Streets of Tarkov, we're testing out some of the new guns, taking a look at the changes to the game, and it's an exciting time, especially if you're somebody who plays the game as much as I do. So there's always going to be those rose-tinted glasses, and then after a few weeks go by, then some of the problems start to really show themselves, and some of those changes to the game really start to have an impact. But before we continue with today's video, I want to mention that we actually have a sponsorship with a company called Factor. Factor is a meal delivery service that delivers no-hassle meals that are not frozen, fresh, directly to your door, so you can spend more time doing what's important, playing video games, grind and escape for Tarkov, or you have a very busy lifestyle, maybe you're working all the time and you just don't want to spend that much effort and energy in the kitchen, you'd rather use that elsewhere. And getting fast food all the time just isn't ideal, or relying on frozen meals. And if you're looking for a brand new option that's going to give you fresh, nutritious meals for your lifestyle, Factor has you covered. And it's a brand new year, so maybe you're making some lifestyle changes like keto, calorie smart, vegan, vegetarian, or you just want to eat some delicious, nutritious meals. There's over 27 different options every week, and meal plans range from 4 to 18 meals per week, and you can add or reduce numbers depending on your specific needs. So if you're interested in Factor, head to the link in the description box below, or go to the website go.factor75.com and use code POGDeadlyJan60 for 60% off your first box. That's 60%. If you've ever considered trying Factor, now is the time. Thanks again for sponsoring today's video. And with that said, let's get back to it. I went into this wipe with a bit of a different perspective. For the last few years, I've always been going for Kappa container, and as the years went on, I noticed that I would acquire the Kappa container and essentially quit the game or make another account, do something different. I barely even used this container that I spent months trying to get my hands on, especially recently with the level changes and the increased number of tasks that are required to get this item. If you don't know what Kappa container is, if you're new to Tarkov, basically it's a 12-slot secured container, and you get that by doing a very long sequence of tasks, and at the very end, you collect and turn in all of the streamer items in the game with find and raid status, and you get your Kappa container. Now, over the years, this has been more difficult to do because the increased number of streamer items, the introduction of find and raid, and setting the level requirement to initially like level 70 or something, then down to 62, and then now it's at level 55, which I feel like is a pretty good place for the container. But it's always been the end goal. And this time, I decided that it won't be. I'm going to be focusing on getting max traders, enjoying the process, focusing on having more fun in the long term, and maybe less focused on getting that secured container. And that was until the questing phase for Lightkeeper was found out and released. And now that is my new challenge. And it sounds like it might be just as difficult as getting Kappa, if not maybe even a little bit more challenging. But Lightkeeper is a brand new thing that was added to the game. And whenever 1213 came out, I wanted to be one of the first people to get over to the Lighthouse Island. I tried my best. There was landmines. I knew deep down that there was a way across, and I was able to find that. And there's a YouTube video that I'm sure some of you guys have already seen, where I was able to make it across, one of the first people across to hit that red button, only to find out that Lightkeeper wanted nothing to do with me because you needed something called a transmitter and a certain number of quests in order to actually get the cutscene and meet Lightkeeper in person. And because of the servers were really struggling, I think I was only like able to do like 4 or 5 raids on my very first day of 1213, but I was so happy that we made it over to that island because so many people were releasing tweets and videos saying it was impossible, and we're just sitting there with our group of people on Twitch knowing for a fact that we can get over there, and to eventually do it was just such a fun payoff. And again, part of the different perspective here for this time playing Escape for Tarkov. So on the first day, I wasn't able to do that many raids because the servers were quite literally on fire and I just wasn't able to play that much. So on the second day, I put some effort into exploring Streets of Tarkov, this brand new map. We've been waiting for it for years. And of course, as predicted, horrible performance. Like one of the toughest map launches for Battle State games, clearly. And they had rubber banding issues, memory leak, performance problems, server lag, queue times being super long, and just an overall difficult experience, which also led into me having one of the lowest survival ratings on day 2 that I've ever had in my Tarkov career. We're dipping into the 30s, man. It was like 38%. But I was having a lot of fun, man, checking out a brand new map. Again, different perspective this time. Enjoying the process, not necessarily just rushing the tasks right away, and taking a look at this map, this piece of art that these guys have been working on for a very long time. Despite all these issues that they had on launch day, as of January 12th, the moment I'm recording this, a lot of issues are starting to be smoothed out, and I've had a pretty decent experience playing as a PMC, and I don't get my memory leaks anymore, which is kind of nice. I don't have to like restart my client every couple of games. I can consistently stay in the map and play match after match, which is cool. And then I've also noticed that the stutters that I was getting on the first couple of days are also not there anymore. But if I play my scav, for whatever reason, I get really bad rubber banding issues, which is obviously not ideal. But if we take away all like the bugs and the performance of the map itself and just look at it as an Escape from Tarkov map, Streets is a very beautiful map. It's a labor of love. The attention to detail is insane. So it has definitely been worth the wait. Of course, it'll be better when it performs well for most players in the game, which is simply not the case. And my biggest issue with the map so far is the spawns. I know we can say that for most Escape from Tarkov maps in the game. The spawns are just not ideal, but especially on Streets, there are certain situations where you can quite literally spawn in, look left, see an enemy that's standing still, and snipe them if they don't move off the spawn. So those are the types of things that I personally don't like and I find unacceptable. But again, this is the first time that Streets was released, so I'm hoping that things will change, or when the map is expanded, there'll be more interesting places to spawn so you're not directly on top of your enemies all the time. But I also want to see that for Lighthouse 2 because there are some really bad ones there. In fact, the entire game, I would love to see some spawn reworks. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are going to be interested to hear what I have to say about the audio. That's going to come in a little bit later. I kind of want to focus on some of the new stuff, but I will talk about the audio in this video. Next up, we have some of the new weapons. We got the SR2, we got the AUG, and the Rise 12. Now, the AUG is the one that surprised me the most. All of us had that Christmas AUG, and that was a great starting weapon. And the AUG itself is a pretty reasonable price, and the optic is way better than I thought. Now, the recoil is a little bit crazy, and it's also a different recoil pattern. It has more horizontal and like a weird vertical recoil. It mainly wants to kick directly to the right and not left, which is so strange. It's very unique, but I'm not getting G36 vibes from the AUG. I think the gun is not going to be a meta weapon by any means. It's not going to be something that shatters PvP, but it's a cheap, accessible, easy to mod, ready to get into the fight weapon. And the built-in optic with the AUG A1 is way better than I actually expected it to be. So I think it exceeded my expectations, but it isn't like going to be a gun that I typically use at like level 50, level 60 when I can mod an M4 or something equivalent, right? It doesn't mean the gun is bad. It is certainly more usable and it has a place more so than the G36. So I don't know what you guys have to say about the AUG. I personally think it's a great gun and it's an awesome budget firearm that shoots 5.56 and great for semi-automatic plinking if that's what you're into. Now the SR2. This gun has been the #1 gun on my list for the last few years because I am a big fan of the SR1MP. I really wanted to see the ammunitions that don't have a larger variety of weapons get some, and of course the SR2 is one of those choices. The only thing about the SR2 is the ammunition is extremely difficult to get your hands on because the player base constantly buys it out in bulk. Now, whenever you get to level 3 and level 4 prep war, that makes it a lot easier. But even the rounds BT, or used to be SP13, those are now craftable requirements or find and raid only. So you do still have the ability to purchase PS rounds. They're fairly decent. They're definitely competitive for PvP, especially for meta PvP. And the recoil on the SR2 is not nearly as bad as I expected it to be. So on the first opportunity that I could get my hands on 3-round magazines and ammunition, I went on a 14 raid streak with my first SR2, and I made a really cool video showing off some of the best clips. It is an awesome weapon. I actually haven't used it that much after the 14 raid streak because I've been doing things like Punisher and specific weapon quests, but I suspect in the long term, it will be a weapon that I use very often. It reminds me of the old AS Val and VSS, like back a few years ago. Not whenever it was an absolute laser beam zero recoil, but somewhere in between whenever they started buffing the recoil on the gun a little bit more. I love it. I just wish you guys would stop buying the ammo out all the time, man. It really brings some questions about how the dealers work with the global economy, because I've been saying this for years. Dealers, in my opinion, should be an individual relationship directly with the player. There shouldn't be purchase restrictions on all the items that the dealers have. There should just be a certain amount of quantity that the dealer has specifically for you every trade cycle, and that could change depending on your relationship or what kind of quests you complete, or just the entire economy and atmosphere of Escape from Tarkov for that week. So for the Rise 12, very similar to the SR2 in the fact that the ammunition is just not available for my level. I'm actually just about to hit level 36 as of recording this video, so that should let me buy PS12s, which will give me a good chance to use the Rise 12. But for what I've seen, it is an absolute monster, and I have used it with the PS12As, but because those are hollow points, it's just not as effective. It's very difficult to land leg shots with a revolver consistently in the amount of time that you need to kill your enemies. So I just haven't really been running it, but I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about the Rise 12 in the comment section below. But I will be making a video once I get access to better ammunition so I can actually run it. But from what I've seen so far, whenever you actually have PS12Bs, it's an absolute beast and one of the weapons that I've been waiting for so long to be added to Tarkov, so I'm absolutely excited. So let's talk about those questing reworks, huh guys? All you guys leaving mean comments on that tips video I made a few weeks back saying everything was going to be irrelevant because all the quests in Tarkov were going to be changed. Well, although that didn't happen and the questing order is very similar to where it was before, we do have some new missions with gunsmithing, which is kind of cool, building new weapons, and they're time gated. So you do a set of gunsmithing missions, you wait a day, you do another set, and so on and so forth. It would be really cool if the mechanic daily missions were actually gunsmithing quests. I think that'd be kind of neat. But anyways, the quests are very similar to what they were before, unless you're doing the new Streets of Tarkov quests, which there are way more than I actually expect. But the biggest change here is the single-use keys. Although I'm not a big fan of this change, most of the single-use keys do have either near 100% spawn rates or 100% spawn rates on the maps themselves, including some of the new streets keys, and those locations are currently on the wiki. So as much as I'm not a huge fan of that change, at least you're not farming like 112 at the bus on Shoreline for 15-20 raids only for it to have one use and you basically use it and die to some guy in the resort. So it may be not as bad as it could be, but I still kind of preferred the old way. Now, although these changes that I'm about to talk about didn't happen right at the beginning of the wipe, they are pretty significant as of this week. The ammunition changes, M80 being removed from level 3 Peacekeeper, well, initially removed from level 2, then to level 3, and now level 4. BP are being removed from the flea market and from the dealers, and a lot of the endgame armor-piercing meta ammunitions are just very difficult to get your hands on, or if you craft them, it takes a very long time, and the quantity that you get is pretty small. So I guess the idea is the devs want you to craft over long periods of time the ammunition that you're going to be using the most, which in turn will contribute to hideout management skill, which will also help reduce the amount of time that you're going to be crafting those ammunitions. But anyway, I digress. It is a massive change. Why would they do something like this? I think the idea is to not penalize the players specifically, but to try to encourage more long fights. In the mid to late game at Escape for Tarkov, you die almost all the time with a single bullet or 2 bullets. And I know that still happens with head eyes and all that kind of stuff, but the reduction of these types of ammunitions in the economy and players using more like 30 pen rounds whenever you're running class 4, class 5 body armors, it's going to give you more time to get into cover and then potentially use things like stimulants, which the devs have really been amping up and changing some of the effects, but not just that, adding new ones to the game. So a lot of people want Tarkov to feel more like the very beginning of a wipe, and I think this is the developers' attempt to do that. The biggest complaint, of course, is this is going to reward those, especially in the very beginning of a wipe, who have the time to grind to level 4 traders as opposed to people who don't. And that is a very fair argument. But I do believe there are more people who play this game either semi-casually or at the point where they don't have level 4 dealers yet. I do think you are in the minority if you're already level 40. So there isn't as many like mega Chad players out there as you might think, and there's a significant amount of player base that is very similar to you, that has a 9 to 5, gets home, plays a reasonable amount of Escape for Tarkov, isn't no-lifing it all the time, and those players are going to be way more competitive with you. So I think you have to look at it from that perspective. But at the same time, my personal take is I think a round such as M80 should be Peacekeeper level 3. I think at level 2 was a bit too low. And things like BP ammunitions, BT, armor-piercing rounds, putting them in raid is not a bad idea. I would like to see ammo cases buffed, but then also there is still some very powerful rounds that are available to the players. So at the end of the day, it might just shift the meta over to some other weapons rather than, you know, reduce the amount of time it takes to kill a player anyway. So I'm definitely indifferent on this, but I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say on this subject, and this might actually deserve its own video or another discussion down the road. And last but not least, the audio. The audio sucks. We all know it. It's really shit. There's no question about that. It's a huge step backward. Sorry, is that a little bit too forward? Like coming at you too fast? Okay, so they went from Steam Audio, they got away with that, or well, let's start from the beginning. They designed their own audio, then they went to Steam Audio, and now they're going to Oculus Audio, and the transition between those 3 audio profiles, trying to make the game better, that quest has led us to where we are now, in a place where the Oculus Audio was certainly rushed. Not all the maps are complete, but they pushed it to 12.13 anyways, and we're starting to see the negative effects of that. Especially if any of you guys have been playing Interchange, Shoreline, or any map that really requires solid verticality to what you're hearing in your headset. I have tried Windows Sonic, I have tried DTS, I've tried binaural on and off, and there doesn't really seem to be a way, other than maybe some bro science or just personal opinion, that can fix the problem that the devs have made with their new audio program, or engine, or software, whatever you want to call it. It is just not done. It is unacceptable at the level of what most FPS players should expect from a game such as Escape for Tarkov, and it is unfortunate that they had to release it in its current state. So I am hopeful that they resolve this as quick as possible and we get some updates in the next couple of months, but I would be really sad to see the current state of the audio remain in the game for over 6 to 12 months. Is that possible? Absolutely. This is Battlestate Games we're talking about here, but fingers crossed we can get something a little bit better, or, you know, some of these issues fixed as soon as humanly possible. I'm sure there's lots of YouTube videos out there on how you can make your audio better by using different surround sound softwares. You can certainly give it a try, but I do think most of that is just going to be putting a band-aid on a bleeding artery. and you definitely need more help, and the only help we're getting is from the devs themselves. So overall, I am having a lot of fun with this wipe, regardless with some of the performance issues and the audio issues. My new perspective and just trying to go for those max traders and then unlocking Lightkeeper is a brand new goal instead of just going for Kappa Container all the time. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the streams themselves have been so fun, hilarious, and just such an awesome atmosphere. I'm having so much fun playing Escape for Tarkov right now. And if you guys haven't actually seen my live stream, go to twitch.tv/DeadlySlob Monday through Friday, starting at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A link to that will be included in the description box below. And again, thank you so much for watching this video, especially these longer videos like this, and supporting all my content so far into 2023. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.